But first of all, welcome. We're going to talk about the future of tourism and where the industry is going. And I have Mr. Theoharis here. I'm really pleased. My name is Marina Cvetkovic. I'm an executive coach. I work with leaders, executive teams on driving sustainable growth in big corporations. And really pleased to welcome you to this panel today with
That's what.
with Mr. Theoharis, who is a former Minister of Tourism and also a candidate for the Secretary General for the World Tourist Organization, and also a member of Hellenic Parliament. So welcome.
Thank you.
Before we go any further, we have to give this a bit more attention. So you were saying that's actually really important for the future of tourism. How was the care you received here in Davos?
It was excellent. I mean, people came really quick to take me to the hospital and ensure that they, take care and do the X-rays and whatever was required, and they gave me their recommendations. Unfortunately, I cannot fully resolve the issue here. I'll have to continue my program this week, and then first Madrid, and then back home in Athens, and then I'll have to deal with it in a more comprehensive fashion. But it was. All in all, it was excellent, both in terms of the kind of care that I got and in terms of the attention, the person-to-person contact and relationship. That's part of this experience.
Yeah, and I guess from a more kind of practical level, a warning to everyone, because we've all been saying it's actually really nice in Davos. It's warm, there's no snow, we can wear regular business shoes. I still don't think that's a great idea. I think we still need proper shoes, right, this week.
Yeah.
So sorry you had to go through that.
That's okay. It's part of life.
Yeah. So diving into our topic of today, where is the future of tourism going? How do you see that evolving?
Well, the main thing that we're experiencing in this period is fragmentation. We have a lot of destinations that are emerging. The fault lines are mainly on a destination level, but there are fault lines on the country level as well. But the main difference is whether a destination is emerging or is developed. The emerging destinations are thirsty. They need more marketing, more share of voice, more connectivity, more investment. They need all the usual stuff that's required in order to develop their products and to be accessible and to entice people to travel. On the other hand, we have the developed destinations that are reaching the point, many of them, not all, but many are reaching the point of having to do something about the flows, having to do something about the management of the destination itself. We've seen people chasing tourists away with water pistols. We've seen people putting black barriers blocking the view so that the tourists don't stop to take pictures and
Right.
stuff like that. And of course, we've seen various measures from taxes being implemented to limit the flows, to administrative measures like not allowing specific times of the day or whatever, visits. So we see various things happening in order to manage those flows, but this is something that we're going to go through more and more in the future. And we also see a very interesting phenomenon, which is the phenomenon of short-term rentals, which has altered the way tourism affects the economy, because tourism and the housing market were two distinct markets. They had nothing the other. You would build hotels, you would build housing, and the laws of supply and demand would dictate the prices. With short-term rentals, suddenly the two markets have merged. They affect each other. And people take away housing supply and push it towards short-term rental and towards tourist rentals. And that is beginning to create strains in a lot of developed destinations because housing is a very socially sensitive matter. It affects from the political level, it affects the whole populace. So it's not just an industry-specific issue. And I think it's something that we would have to deal with. I'm not sure there are developed best practices yet, but it's something that we need to monitor, and we need to actively pursue various solutions to fix.
And coming back to your observation around, there's sort of like two parts of the story: the emerging ones, the developing ones, and the developed ones. And obviously, we're here in Davos, so the topic of sustainable growth is a big one. How should countries tackle this best in your experience, and what have you seen? And in particular, what I'm curious is, you said the developing ones, the emerging ones, they're thirsty, they're hungry, they need more tourism. So obviously the risk there is that we go for any kind of growth, right? We don't necessarily put so much thought into how do we grow sustainably.
Yeah.
It's unfortunately, it's still a reality that sustainability is sort of like an afterthought than something that is built in from the beginning. So I'm curious, what have you observed, and are there any countries that are doing this great, perhaps, from the start, even though they're just an emerging?
Well, first of all, I'd like to see the glass half full. So I think the emerging destinations have a great opportunity to learn from the mistakes of the developed destinations. A country like Greece has developed its touristic product year after year, decade after decade. So there's a lot of layers there of development as the different decades, the governments change, the direction of development change, etc., etc. So it's not easy to make sweeping changes. I mean, we've seen that we can do with a lot of technological solutions, like for energy generation, etc. But tourism is a very complex product, and what we saw in Baku is that tourism has only adjusted its emissions by 1%, meaning that it's lagging behind, both in terms of what is required as the task ahead of us, and in terms of the other industries that are way ahead. So in those two benchmarks, I think we are behind. So we need to sort of press the gas pedal, as it were. Now there are many things that the countries can do. And the problem is, and I think analytically speaking, is that the SDGs of UN are a complex beast. You have many, and in many cases, divergent requirements. We need to talk about biodiversity preservation, for example. We need to talk about electricity. We need to talk about and all forms of energy. We need to talk about social inclusion and ensuring that the benefits of tourism reach the community level. We need to talk about empowerment of women, of minorities, etc., etc. So there are many different and competing requirements, and unless we try to create the kind of hubs of practitioners and consultants on specifics, we seem to be running around in circles with pilot projects and with awards and small scale solutions. But I think we reached the time where we need to copy, extend, and make them into large scale solutions that are scalable for the big industry at large. So I think the task is really ahead of us. But as I said, many industries have done it in many important ways, so we can copy them. And the final problem that just recently has emerged is the fact that financing now, we used to fight about financing in terms of the transition, but now we will compete with financing in terms of the reconstruction and resilience. We have fires and floods from Valencia to Greece, many other countries, And now the funding will go into this crisis management, and it will be much more difficult to find the required means to ensure that we do proactively the transition projects that are required in order to tackle the problem. So we have issues to solve, but also they are solvable, and I think it's a question of political will and unity, being able to cooperate together. This cannot be solved by the public sector alone. It cannot be solved by the private sector alone. It can only be solved by all people involved, including the multilateral institutions.
And so I'm glad you're mentioning that, because I was going to ask you and go there. Obviously, you're a candidate, for the position at the World Tourism Organization. And I can guess what the motivation behind that is. And so I would love to hear your take on, the topic of last year's gathering was collaboration in a fragmented world, right? And your take on the importance of, you mentioned the collaboration between private and public sector, which I think is one element of that, but the collaboration across countries, how can countries tackle this together? And have we seen good examples of perhaps countries really joining forces to tackle this jointly?
I think Europe in that respect is, because it's a forum where countries collaborate, is perhaps a bit further ahead than other destinations. So we have, even there, the things that have happened are very, very small scale. But on the 6th of December, there will be a conference by ETC, the European Travel Council, on Destination Europe. So we see Europe and the Commission and the institutions there trying to promote the destination of Europe as a whole, which makes sense for long-haul flights. It makes sense for a US person flying to Europe. They don't do it every year, so they want to go to Paris and Berlin and Bratislava and Prague, and they just pile up. So effectively, they just see Europe as one entity, because that's how it feels from that far. It's not the same for a German citizen. They'll go to a specific country. Sometimes they'll go to a specific island of Greece and not the other ones, etc. So it feels differently. But yes, we have seen a lot of collaboration. The cruise industry is a big driver for collaboration, because cruises inherently go to many destinations, and especially in areas like the Mediterranean, they want to go to Turkey and Greece and Egypt and Israel and Italy. So they automatically combine various countries, and we have to collaborate among us.
And are there any instances of collaborating not only for creating a more unified experience, but really collaborating for more sustainable solutions?
Yeah, I'm not sure. I'm aware. I'm not sure we're there yet. No, I think this is something that we need to do, and I think the easiest path for that is to appeal to the vanity of countries and governments, basically trying to find their best practices, what they're good at, and then see how we can scale that, or how we can copy-paste that, as it were, from one country to the other. So that way, this is a very, very positive way to engage the countries together, and I think that's something that institutions like UN Tourism can be central to those initiatives, because you need someone centrally to initiate them and coordinate them, etc., etc. And I think multilateral organizations are what they're for, really.
So if you become the Secretary General, is this one of the topics on your agenda then?
Yes.
Yeah.
I think this is an important topic. We need, as I said, we live in a fragmented world, so we need more unity. I don't believe that countries can grow on their own, the touristic product. So we need unity in order to be able to achieve the kind of growth that's required. The good thing is that we don't need to convince people to travel. This is almost like a basic human right, you know? So it's more about ensuring that we have tourists that are respectful, and as a result, the touristic they don't. Because we've seen those examples of misbehavior, etc., and creating problems in the local population, so that we don't create a bad name for tourism on one hand, and on the other hand, we need to ensure that in a sustainable way we can spread the supply and give more choices to the people that demand to travel, but choices that are meaningful, sustainable, and actually affect the local population and the local communities. This is the big part of tourism. It's very intensive in terms of the people that it needs to employ, and as a result, the effects of tourism can reach to really on the ground, rather than being, just on the level of corporate accounts and the big corporations. Really, tourism reaches even the last person of an island or of a destination.
In terms of the benefits, right? The local community
Yes.
benefits from it. Because we've seen also examples, things going the other way, right? Of like not benefiting.
Sure. We see a prime example here in Davos of a very small community and how it's transformed by a specific product, which is a touristic product at the end. I mean, the discussions are fruitful, are important, but for the local community, really what's important for them is us being here and sharing their way of life a bit, and their landscape, the things, the beauty that they see every day, and we get to see for a few days per year.
So changing gears a bit, if we look at all of this from a more like leadership perspective, right? So obviously there's all sorts of solutions that are underway, and I love your comment around seeing the glass half full. I think it's so important, and sometimes in Davos it's easy to get pessimistic and say we're not as far as we should be, but I think at the same time we're humans, right? Positive affirmations are important. It's important to acknowledge the progress we did make. And from a more leadership standpoint, obviously you work with leaders in the tourism industry every day, on all levels, government, corporate. What do you think needs to evolve from a leadership perspective in order to make, to accelerate, right, this progress on, as you said, both fronts, right, the SDGs?
Well, I think what's missing is leadership on the political and the multilateral political level. That's one thing, because there's a lot of coordination, destinations, IATA, ICAO, UN Tourism, UN, European institutions are very, very important in order to be able to create the requirements in order to be able to develop your touristic products. So you cannot just wake up one day and say, okay, I have a nice beach and then that's enough. It's not enough. You need the connectivity. You need many things, and you need education. You need to be able to educate your people and provide the service that's required and all that. So that's on one side, and we need, as I said before, to take best practices and transfer them to the destinations that are thirsty for knowledge. The second thing that's required is a sense of civic responsibility. Always the leaders, they need to feel that the outcomes that are not immediately connected to the bottom line, but are more, they are connected to the bottom line, but in a more longer term time frame and time scale. So they need to accept that, and everybody else, we need to recognize when they do it, and adjust our behavior towards them and make the choices as customers towards those companies that do it, because that will reinforce that good behavior to more and more people.
Yeah, it's a movement, isn't it, right?
Yes, it's many things, but it's also a movement. But I think it's also good business, and I think part of the Davos project is to ensure that we find the ways in which the social and the moral side of things and the movement side of things,
Goes together.
meet
Yes.
the business side of things.
Yeah. That's so important. It's I was leading a conversation recently on basically, finding a bridge between profit and purpose, and it was a panel of corporate CEOs. And at the end of the day, the audience asked, "So what comes first, profit or purpose?" And they said, "Profit, unfortunately, always has to come first. If we don't make profit, we cannot really fulfill the purpose. We need to be profitable in order to be able." But of course, they need to go hand in hand. And I think the evolution is more bringing purpose more at the forefront rather than, again, as an
I would humbly disagree. That
Okay.
I think even on the business side, purpose comes first. A startup doesn't make profits. It has a good purpose, and it starts and mobilizes resources and convinces people. And with this purpose, it reaches a level that is actually profitable at some point in time. But I think really what burns the heart of the CEO and of the owner and of the innovator really is the purpose of solving some sort of problem.
Interesting. Thank you for that perspective.
you.
At the end of the day, it's like, how do you bring the two together, right? Because
Sure.
you need both in order to drive
And that is the magic of sustainability.
Yeah.
We always talk about the environmental sustainability, but there are three dimensions. There's economic and there's social sustainability. And of course, economic sustainability has very specific rules that we have to follow. It's almost like physics, really.
So what are you most excited about in 2025?
Excited. I think 2025, there are not many things to be excited, to be fair, because we see that on a geopolitical timescale. Now I'm wearing the politician's hat. On the geopolitical side of things, we see a lot of upheaval, a lot of problems, and tourism is a bridge. It's a bridge for peace, but it's also affected by that. So I was a minister of tourism of Greece, a country that almost has no enemies, no problems, no quarrels, except with Turkey. We have our differences. But I was able to pick up the phone and speak to the Minister of Tourism on the other side of the Aegean. So it's always a bridge-building enterprise, tourism. And it's always the first one to be there in the confidence-building measures and support-building measures. So I think tourism has a lot to do and to help in this very, very difficult landscape. So I think that's the most exciting prospect. We all need to find ways of supporting peace through this fragile time, and tourism is a good opportunity to do so.
Yeah, I love that. Tourism is a bridge for peace. I'm Serbian by origin, by the way. So obviously we love each other, right? We're friends, the Greeks and the Serbs, and but tourism is a big driver for that because we go to Greece all the time, and so that's how the nations and the cultures kind of know each other.
Correct.
And that's why we consider each other friends, right? And even through, I think, the Balkan War and all of that, and once all of that settled, tourism was the way back into the peace. It was because people wanted to go back to actually visiting each other's destinations that we had to go back to actually liking each other and getting along with each other, despite everything that happened in the past. So I like that as a sort of an overarching umbrella for what tourism does, for the ecosystem, because it really does.
Unfortunately, we need it. We need it now more than
We do.
In the recent years.
Yeah, we do. Thank you so much, and I would love to spend the last few minutes for any questions from the audience. Yes, please.
Yes, you didn't mention the workforce, and I
Yes.
was curious because I know that the Greeks changed their labor laws relatively recently, so that I think people can work now 6 or 7 days a week. Can you maybe explain a little bit about what you're doing there, and because you obviously have had a lot of pressure because
Sure.
the tourism in Greece has been booming.
Yeah. Yeah, the question is about, I don't know whether it was recorded, but the question was about the labor laws and, the workforce in general. and the changes that we made recently to allow for more flexibility in terms of the working hours, and how those are spread during the week. First of all, this is a big problem. The workforce, at least for the developed destinations, this is not just a Greek problem, it's an Italian problem. Many destinations and many industries seem to be in a situation where they lack the required personnel. I mean, the numbers that we calculate is that from the Greek touristic industry, about 80,000 people are missing compared to what the employers would have paid for in order to have the adequate service levels. Now, during the economic crisis, one of the issues that was identified by the institutions was the rigidity of our labor laws. And we're not doing it for the touristic industry, because the touristic industry has a very specific agreement between the employees and the employers that allowed them to work for the specific period in time where it's high season, for a more continuous number of days, and get their days off in a more flexible way. So this was done in a more general fashion. It allows the employer to, for specific periods in time, for someone to work for 6 or even 7 days, but in other industries as well. And I think what we've seen is that Greece, which during the crisis have reached levels of unemployment of about 27-28%, we needed to make those changes in order to allow the unemployment to go back down to the normal levels that it used to have before the crisis. So currently, those measures in general, not just this measure, seem to be working. We, at the same time, have increased the number of audits and checks and ensuring that the laws as they are not being abused, which is a phenomenon that has happened and is happening to some degree, but has happened in the past in much more horizontal fashion, as it were. So I think the stricter auditing compared to the more flexibility that doesn't allow for the need to abuse the laws is the way forward. And this way, Greece has reached levels of unemployment of 9%, which we hadn't seen since 2008 and 2009. And the good thing as well is that the two biggest problems in unemployment that we have, which were women and young people, are actually converging to the average of unemployment, which is very good. We're limiting our problems.
Thank you.
Yeah, what about retirement age in Greece now? I mean, it was in their 50s, wasn't it? Is it still the case?
No.
That's one question. And the other question is, regarding sustainability. I mean, you have reached increasement or improvement levels of 1%, but we don't have that much time. I mean, in terms of speed, what is your idea of progressing more quickly until 2050? And I think you may have seen in Los Angeles what's going on there, and in Europe there are lots of problems as well. So I don't think we have a lot of time to say we are going from 1% to 2%, maybe in 10 years to 5%. So I mean, what's the plan?
Now, in terms of the retirement age, we are actually now have one of the highest in Europe. So during this crisis, we increased both the retirement age, which is 65, 67, something like that. And also we have made the exceptions to that age far few. And we certainly managed to do that without the problems that other countries in Europe we saw with, in France, for example, the Gilets jaunes going against those changes, etc., etc. So I think this is working as it should. The sustainability of the Greek pension system is great. Of course, we need to monitor it, as every country has to. And if things do not go well, demographics, etc., are big factors in that respect. We need to make the necessary adjustments as well. But Greece is following currently one of the most fiscally prudent paths. We have one of the highest primary surpluses. We're repaying the debt. We're lowering our debt by 10 percentage points per year, roughly. Of course, we're starting from the worst position, but the projections are that by 2027, we will actually have lower debt than Italy, so we will not be, after many, many years, the highest debtor country in Europe. Now, in terms of the acceleration, then, well, some things are helping anyway. Electricity generation, which is not strictly speaking tourism, as it cleans up, of course, the energy that tourism uses is a clean energy, so we'll have a lot of changes happening in the economy through synergies and through economies of scale, et cetera, et cetera. But you're right that we need to coordinate more. We need to create those hubs of, as I mentioned before, practitioners and consultants to take specific models and push them in the industry. So there's no other way going around that. Now the countries and the institutions like the European Union can play a huge role for that. But as I said, UN Tourism as well is uniquely positioned to push for those kind of measures as well.
Thank you.
Thank you.